Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 175, Reunion.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray. Each week on Mission Log, we take a streamlined look at an episode of Star Trek, pulling it apart for messages and ideas and seeing what, if any of it, fits into the world today in the way of our fathers and our fathers' fathers and their fathers before them.
We've sped things up a little bit, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because those guys, I mean, it was like one episode a month with them. Old ways.
I know, right? Crazy. Yeah. Hey, this week, Kempek's getting the band back together. It's Reunion. Woo! Maybe not quite that fun. In a moment, John will carry on the tradition of trivia. But first, if you have some Klingon wisdom that you'd like to share with us, you know, some blood pudding recipes, settling the age-old Klingon debate, there are several ways that you can get in touch with us. Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can. Our phone number is 323-522-5641. That number again, 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including discovered documents and all kinds of other fun stuff, is at missionlogpodcast.com. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log. You weren't going to do a blood pudding recipe in this episode, were you?
I wasn't, but I think I might do trivia with weapons.
Oh, okay, cool. I look forward to that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, here we go. Today's trivia. Reunion was written by everybody. For the story anyway, you have a credit for Drew Deegan, who wrote the story for Sins of the Father from Season 3. You've also got story credits for Thomas and Joe Perry. But it was Brandon Braga who was assigned by Jerry Taylor and Michael Piller with Ron Moore to rewrite the script on this one. So this was Brandon's first script for Next Generation and his first collaboration with Ron Moore. Now, Ron got hate mail for killing KEhleyr.
Sure.
And, there was really...
Hey, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen the episode.
Yeah, we expect usually that people watch the episode before they listen to us. Though it was really Michael Dorn's idea. Well, if you ask him. It depends on who you ask. But Michael Dorn says that Maurice Hurley had asked him what would really piss off Worf. And Dorn said, kill his old lady. And Susie Plaxton still has not forgiven him. But that also brings us to Michael Piller saying that it was his idea, at least his idea, to go through with it because it was reasonable motivation to get Worf where he needed to go for the episode. Now, Ron Moore says that he has always liked reading the hate mail, and the really negative reviews really kind of gets him going. The most interesting piece of hate mail he got for this episode was one from Patricia Keneally Morrison. Do you know that name, Ken?
I do not.
So you remember in the movie The Doors, when Jim Morrison, played by Val Kilmer, has that weird, wedding ceremony with a witch?
Yeah.
That is Patricia Keneally.
Really?
And that is a true story. So she dated Jim Morrison for a brief time, and they were married in a pagan ceremony, though legally it didn't hold. And she was a Star Trek fan, and she wrote apparently a beautifully calligraphied piece of hate mail about what happened in this episode.
Wow.
And how Reunion was directed by some young upstart called Jonathan Frakes. He's already directed one for us called The Offspring before that. Maybe he'll do some more. Hope to see him around. And props, well, we get to see that weird ball chair again that we mentioned before. And we get to see one of the weapons that Tasha used in Code of Honor. I don't know if you noticed that.
The ball with all the spikes on it?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess Worf picked that up when they left Code of Honor. I guess I'll just keep that because why not? Weapons.
They got to have 3D printers in the 24th century. Maybe he just described it.
Oh, there you go.
And had it,
picture and said here. Make
exactly.
This. Yeah. And this episode marks the first on-screen appearance of an iconic Star Trek prop, the Klingon Batleth. Visual effects artist Dan Curry, bit of a martial arts enthusiast. Well, that's understating it. After school, Dan went to Thailand with the Peace Corps, and he learned to speak the language fluently, and he also became an expert in martial arts. He was seriously into martial arts. He contributed a lot then to the fighting style that we see the Klingons. He designed the bat'leth in foam and got approvals except from the stunt coordinator. That was Dennis Madelon, but he eventually came around to love the bat'leth too. It was designed based on a Chinese fighting crescent, and just like you might imagine, a curved blade weapon with a handle in the middle. Incidentally, Dan Curry is a Star Trek fan and collector too. He kept some souvenirs from set, as well as a lot of the commercial Star Trek products that were on the market in his collection. Guest stars this week, some new and some returning. We have Susie Plaxton back as KEhleyr, and Charles Cooper as K'mpec, and also Patrick Massett as Duras. They are joined by Jon Stewart as Alexander. That's the only time we will see him in that role, and he later on went to appear in Grace Under Fire for a few years before dropping out of acting. And Robert O'Reilly as Gowron. Now, we've mentioned Bob once before in Season 2 for Manhunt, where he had a brief role in the holodeck. But now we introduce him as the Klingon Gowron. And it's not a spoiler to say that we will be seeing a lot more of him in the future. Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Of course, he started out with a number of TV guest roles, and since Star Trek, he has appeared in a number of video games as Gowron and even had a role in Roddenberry on Patrol. While Bob has technically retired from acting, you can still find him hamming it up at conventions, sometimes as himself, sometimes as Gowron.
Love, murder, an explosion. This episode has everything. Let John tell us more.
Prologue. Some totally boring mission for the Enterprise turns into a not boring mission when a Klingon cruiser decloaks right off the bow to say hello. It's KEhleyr, Worf's mate, and she has some important news for her Federation friends. Worf hesitates to go meet her in the transporter room, what with his discommendation and all, but Picard basically says, look, don't be such a tool, do your job, and Worf goes. When KEhleyr beams in, she's got a companion, a teeny tiny Klingon, like a little kid, but a Klingon kid. Act 1. You were thinking it, I was thinking it, even Chief O'Brien was thinking it. That is Worf's kid, named Alexander, but KEhleyr has kept it a secret. Worf doesn't seem too happy, and Alexander doesn't know because he's been in a daycare while his parents have grown-up talk. But to the mission at hand. There is a Klingon battle brewing for control of the Empire. K'mpec, the Emperor, is dying, and the fight to take his place will likely spill over into the Federation. For that reason, K'mpec wants to see Picard. K'mpec poses a question to Picard. How would you like to arbitrate choosing the next Klingon Supreme Counselor? No? Well, too bad. It's already in the works. The invitations have already been sent. Also, the reason K'mpec is dying is that he has been poisoned, either by Gowron or Duras. Let's see, now where do we know the name Duras again? Oh, yes, the guy who orchestrated Worf's discommendation to protect his own family name and also tried to have Picard assassinated. Now Picard is interested in the job. Find the person who poisoned K'mpec and make him Emperor. No. The other way around. Find the person who poisoned K'mpec and make the other guy Emperor. The kind of Klingon who doesn't show his face to one he is killing truly has no honor and should not be their ruler. Act 2. K'mpec is dead. Now we just hold out for Gowron and Duras so Picard can arbitrate who will become the next Emperor. It's a good time for Worf, then, to get to know his son, who doesn't know he's his son. Alexander is having a tough time assimilating to daycare with the other kids on the Enterprise. Where are the puppies when you need them? He also lets Worf know that he's not too interested in growing up to be a warrior. This is the old man's line of work, but it's not right for the kid. KEhleyr still pressures Worf about not admitting that Alexander is his son, but Worf has his reasons, not the least of which is a discommendation. The whole bloodline is responsible for the actions of the father, and we know what Worf's father was accused of doing, colluding with the Romulans at Kittimer. At least Worf took the fall for it, legit or not. KEhleyr doesn't get it. She can't believe that Worf would just give up once he challenged the accusation. No time to discuss, though. 2 Klingon warbirds, Vorn and Baruch, have arrived carrying Duras and Gowron, respectively. Duras is in no mood to wait. He wants to get things going to pick the new emperor, presumably himself, but Picard tells him that they will all meet in an hour on board Kempek's ship. And Duras makes it clear that Worf is not invited. Called him a patak and everything. Picard calls Worf into his ready room. Yeah, things could get dicey. But Worf is ready with a judgment. Only he and Picard know what happened in that Klingon council chamber, and Duras is clearly not fit to lead. Picard says not so fast. Duras' father was the one who betrayed the Klingons, and it was Duras who laid the claim on Worf's father. One more thing. Kempek was murdered, so that might have some bearing on who takes the seat of power. Worf doesn't know much about Gowron, other than that he's an outsider. But he just knows Duras is a conniving son of a... Betcha we should get over to Kempek's ship to see what's happening. It's an old Klingon tradition. Poke the corpse with a stick to make sure he's dead. Yep, he's dead. Duras is really anxious to get the new chancellor named, but Picard says, wait, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Before Duras can complain, though, an explosion rips through the chamber where they're all standing. Act 3. Everybody is okay, well, except for 2 non-essential Klingons who were killed. Worf is concerned about KEhleyr. She knows. She knows he's not just interested in her safety, but, he likes her, too, in that romantic Klingon way. They're so close, these two. Think they'll ever get married? Well, even if KEhleyr doesn't care about Klingon tradition, Worf is serious about his discommendation and the secret he hides. He doesn't want that to rub off on the boy. She relents. Then at least be his friend, if you can't be his father. Picard and KEhleyr plot to buy a little time while an investigation can be completed about the explosion. Normally, the rites of succession are pretty quick, but she knows of an older ritual, the Jachuk, in which both nominees have to recite a list of the battles they've won and the prizes they've taken, presumably to show each other how big their pain sticks are. Picard likes this idea, but before KEhleyr leaves, she asks him for some information about what happened during Worf's discommendation. He says nope, he can't answer. The 2 Klingons, Gowron and Duras, are assembled in the briefing room, trading insults when Picard enters. It gets heated enough when Duras accuses Gowron of planting that bomb. Once Picard gains control of the room again, he lays down the law. They will go through with the Jachuk, which will take hours or days. It totally depends on them. In Worf's quarters, Alexander is admiring a formidable Klingon weapon, a batleth, that has been in Worf's family for generations. Worf even shows the kid some sweet moves how to wield that thing, just in case it's needed for battle or something. Gowron bends KEhleyr's ear. If she speeds up the process and, let's say, he wins, KEhleyr could find herself with some very comfortable rewards in the Empire. A seat on the council, command of her own ship. She's not having it, so he just resorts to veiled threats about how Kempek is dead, and it would be a shame if she found herself that way too. Politics is dirty business. Data and Geordi have been doing some work in the meantime. About that bomb on Kempek's ship, it was tiny, no more than 3 millimeters square. And one other thing, it used a molecular decay detonator, which is only used by Romulans. Act 4, Romulans? Yeah, those guys. Unlikely that they could just do this on their own. What's more likely is that they had help on the inside from a Klingon, and who knows for what purpose. But if the Romulans are trying to surreptitiously form an alliance with the Klingon seat of power, it could have serious ramifications for the Federation. So who's behind it? Duras or Gowron, Riker wants to know. KEhleyr says Gowron came to her with a threat, but Worf says Duras must be the guilty one for, reasons. Picard wants to mix it up a little. He invites the Patak, Worf, to the next meeting since he knows it will anger Gowron and Duras. KEhleyr is still not satisfied that she doesn't know the full story of what happened to Worf, and she requests the ship computer to play back all the accessible personal logs for the time the Enterprise visited the Klingon homeworld. While she's doing that, Picard is proceeding with the Jachuk, but in the interim, he has Worf come in with the results of their investigation about the bomb. It does indeed anger Duras and Gowron when Worf enters, and when he lets them know about the Romulan nature of the bomb, well, both Gowron and Duras are cool with dropping the proceedings for a moment to investigate further. KEhleyr is digging a little deeper. She requests files from the Klingon homeworld about the most recent inquest into the Khitomer massacre. But those files are locked, even to an ambassador like herself. Who locked them? Some guy named Duras. As the plot has now really thickened, KEhleyr requests all biographical information on Duras. But wouldn't you know, Duras has received a message from the Klingon homeworld that someone is going through his files, that someone named KEhleyr. Duras has his comrade distract the guard, and in a moment he has made his way to KEhleyr's quarters. She has got him figured out. Duras's father was also at Khitomer. The records were sealed, but what was there was altered to make it look like Worf's father was responsible. Worf took the fall, and Duras was to blame. Act 5. Down in sickbay, Beverly Crusher has been doing her part to help the investigation into the bomb on Kempek's ship. The bomb was actually hidden inside the forearm of one of the Klingons, and it killed that one along with another. It so happens that the Klingon with the arm bomb was one of Duras's men, and it killed one of Gowron's. As Riker points out, Klingons see it as honorable to die in a suicide that also takes out an enemy. Worf and Alexander make their way to KEhleyr's quarters to find a gruesome scene. She's bloodied, barely alive. Worf asks if it was Gowron. She whispers no. She asks for Alexander and places her hand on his and Worf's before she dies. Once she is gone, Worf lets out a yell on the Klingon death ritual. He also tells Alexander to look at this scene and not forget. When Dr. Crusher arrives, KEhleyr is already beyond saving. The damage is too great. Worf, meanwhile, has left Alexander and run to his quarters, where he leaves behind his communicator and picks up his bat'leth. When Riker inquires to Worf's whereabouts, the computer says he beamed over to the Vorn, Duras' ship. Worf has claimed the right of vengeance, announcing to Duras that KEhleyr was his mate. And now what we've all been waiting for, a good old-fashioned Klingon cage match, Worf and his bat'leth, Duras and his sword. Worf doesn't even care that Duras is the only one who can expose his innocence to the Council. By the time Riker and Data arrive with their phasers drawn, Duras is literally neck deep in Worf's bat'leth. Duras is dead. Gowron wins. Oh yeah, a Starfleet officer just murdered someone who happened to be a political candidate. Picard is not happy. He is so unhappy he tells Worf that he really hopes he thinks about what he has done. Does he want to resign? No. Then a reprimand will go on Worf's personal record. And now that we've got that cleared up, isn't it about time for the truth about Duras to come out? Worf says no. It would dishonor all the members of the High Council who participated in the cover-up, but the day will come. In his quarters, Worf tells Alexander that he will be picked up at Starbase to be cared for by Worf's adoptive parents. A starship is no place to raise a kid. Just ask all the kids on the Enterprise. Finally, Alexander asks Worf if he is his father. Worf says yes, and brings in Alexander for a big warrior hug. The end.
You know how I speak in song, right?
Yeah, constantly, yeah.
I hope you know that this will go down on your permanent record.
Very good.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay, that's pretty much it. That's kind of Worf's response, right? Oh, yeah, okay, well, all right. Yeah. I'll be back running security for everybody then. Write that really big.
Someone brought up in an email to us, who said if this had happened to somebody else, like somebody peeling potatoes or just a random guest star, that person would be gone. He would be off the Enterprise in no time.
Well, you know, I thought this is another one of those, except for that one-time moments that you love so much. Like, oh, Spock's great, except for that one time that he took the Enterprise to Talos 4.
Oh, yeah.
Kirk's great, except for that, that one time that he stole the Enterprise to look for a dead guy.
Right.
Data's great, except for that one time he locked everyone out of the Enterprise controls and hijacked the ship. And Worf's great, except for that one time he straight up killed a guy in front of a superior officer.
This is your one screw-up, Worf. Just this one, you get this one, but not the next one, okay?
It's good to know how high those go, though.
Yeah. You can straight up kill a political candidate.
I understand you lost a sack of potatoes. Yeah, that's your one screw up. Really? That's it? Man. Because that other guy, killed a guy.
Right.
And that was his one screw up. Yeah.
It's not yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Aim high, John. That's the point.
It just, there's a great deal of cultural relativism there. It's like, Picard's saying, I understand that where you come from, it's totally okay to kill somebody like that. But you see, where we are, we don't really do that.
Yeah.
So we'll give it a pass.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Do Klingons just grow up really fast? How long has it been since KEhlyr's last visit?
I don't know.
Year and a half, couple of years, maybe.
Well, but the thing is, we're only talking about seasons. I mean, we've talked before about not really knowing how much time has passed, like from one episode of Star Trek to the next. I guess you could do the whole, Stardate whatever thing, but
sure.
I mean, they're always on a boring mission.
Yeah, constantly.
Right? And we only see the ones that get interrupted.
Right.
So, I mean, it may have been 5 years since she was there.
Okay, so it was literally an afternoon between, well, not even an afternoon, but a split second between the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4. But it was like 5 years between the end of season 2 and season 3. Because you had to get Beverly back and you had to get rid of Pulaski and all that. and it gives that kid some time to grow up.
It does indeed. Yes.
Yeah. And we also learned here that the very multicultural Enterprise has 13 planets represented amongst the crew.
Can you name them?
No. Well, we haven't seen
and you
Dr.
call yourself
Solar.
a trivia master.
Well, wait, we haven't seen Dr. Solar in forever, so I don't even trust that there's a Vulcan on board.
No, she's there, though, because remember in Remember Me, Beverly calls for her.
Yeah, but that was forever ago, and, they could have gotten rid of her.
That was just 2 episodes ago.
It seems like a lifetime.
Well, and it may have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really respect Kempek because a real Klingon suspects that he's been poisoned through wine. Therefore, he drinks more wine. Just bring it on.
Yeah. Although I think it was actually the lead cup that he was drinking out of.
It might have been. It looked like a lead cup.
It did. It was awfully scratched. It looked a little soft, maybe a little malleable. His lips were gray. I'm thinking it might have been the cup.
It could have been. Or maybe it was like a new thing that Klingons were. It was like an asbestos cup and dipped in lead. And here, just drink out of this. It's delicious. I like that Alexander asks... he's asking all these questions of Worf. And he's just doing what a little kid does, like, why? Why this? Why that? And then Worf says, a warrior does not ask so many questions. And I really think that parents should use that more often with their kids these days.
Just a warrior doesn't do that?
Just straight up a warrior does not do that.
Yeah.
And now he also mentions that a Klingon does not use poison because the murder would have no honor. I thought as opposed to all the honorable murders.
In Klingon society, there are honorable murders. Yeah. This would have absolutely no honor.
No.
It's weird, though. Like, how was he able to do it? And how did Duras know? Not Duras, I'm sorry. How did Kempek know? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is what's killing me.
Yeah.
As you say, and then he just downs another gallon, probably. It was good to see the pain sticks again. As pain sticks. I know you said it like a week or two ago that they were actually another kind of weapon.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was last week.
Yeah, it was in Legacy.
A little bit twisted that they were used on a dead guy. I mean, it's to make sure that he is dead. I get that. But, it's still kind of sick. It did remind me of the whole, hammering the Pope thing. Do you know about this? You know about this.
No, I mean, short of like, putting a mirror under somebody's nose to see if they're still breathing, I don't know about hammering the Pope. Yeah, no,
so there's this thing, and it turns out, I went to Snopes, and it turns out it's not necessarily true, but it's reported all the time. So there is actually a silver hammer that they do believe was used and is still used to break the papal ring, his signet ring. So the thing that they use to make the signatures for any papal decree or whatever. Yeah. But it's also reported that they tap him on the head 3 times with this silver hammer. And actually, I read up on it a little bit. I was disappointed to find out that it's not necessarily a real thing. Because when I first heard about it, I was like, that's like so much, that's so fun, but so weird at the same time. And I always figured that the reason that it happened was the first time somebody killed the Pope with a hammer.
Right.
And then somebody else came in. He's like, no, I was just making sure he was dead. No, he was dead when I got here, but I wanted to check. So hitting him on the head with a hammer was the best thing. And we still don't know actually if that was ever a thing. One of the things on Snopes says that it actually was a thing up until Vatican II in the 1960s. when they dropped that tradition.
So it's somewhere in papal history then between, like 100 AD and the 1960s, at some point there may have been a pope who actually uttered the phrase, "I'm not dead yet."
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe so. Yeah, well, the Snopes thing, I mean, it's kind of a creepy article.
Yeah, I bet.
Apparently people were so afraid. This was very odd to me. This is going sideways. Never mind.
It's okay. I want to know if they attribute the silver hammer to Maxwell.
No, they do actually talk about that, though. No, Maxwell's silver hammer was actually sort of an early version of John Lennon's instant karma. The idea you do something wrong and instant karma is going to get you.
Oh, cool.
Was what they said. Yeah.
Oh, very
there you go, man.
All right.
Yeah.
There's Pope Minute brought to you by Mission Log.
I was actually going to say it's my Snopes cast.
Yeah, Snopes cast.
I'll just go through and do weird pages from Snopes.
All right, back to Gowron, the guy with the crazy eyes. I love that. I love the crazy eye.
Crazy eyes Klingon right there.
Wow, yeah, right. That's sort of Robert O'Reilly's signature thing.
Yeah.
And man, does it work for that character. It's just super cool and creepy, but fun. He brings sort of a fun style to the Klingons that we don't always see. They're very serious, the Klingons. They take their honor very seriously.
Yeah, there's an edge to Gowron. I mean, they're all, angry. They're all willing to fight, but Gowron might just start.
He's just a little wacky.
Right? He might just go any second.
Yeah, make that guy the king. Yeah.
So you know how you have lines in a show and it's like, oh, this will be really dramatic. And then, you say it out loud and you're like, ooh, maybe say it differently. So there are like 43 files that she has to go through, right? 43 logs from different people. Yeah. And 43, and she's, well, we'll just take them one at a time, as opposed to, I guess, playing them all at once. Because, I got it. Yeah, all 43. I think I heard something in there. I don't remember which one, though. I should have just taken them one at a time.
Data could do it.
Data could do it.
I don't think that KEhleyr could do it.
I don't think so. No, I think maybe she's just bemoaning the fact that, we'll take them one at a time.
Right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but try it with a different read. Give me a little more to it.
Put a little life into it, come on. Did Gowron and Duras really do any investigating into the bomb?
Yes.
You think so?
I do believe so. Well, I mean, obviously Duras didn't because he knew.
Well, he didn't have to.
I think Gowron did.
Well, I just wondered, is this how they do things? Is this how Klingons do things? Because just all the time, it's just just like, something blew up, fight. Someone I don't like entered a room, fight. Elections are taking too long, let's just fight about it. It's a wonder that they have survived as long and made as many advanced, like technological advancements as they have. Because they're really, they don't even care. I mean, they kind of care because, a bomb killed somebody. But here's the extent of our investigation. It was a bomb, and we're done. We investigated it.
Well, okay, here's the thing, though. So Duras is not going to investigate it because he knows, because he did it.
Yeah, he's going to cover up as much as he can.
And Gowron's not going to investigate it because he knows he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the only surprise in the whole thing is when they find out that there was Romulan collusion involved. And once they know that, then Duras is like, oh, I'm boned. And Gowron's like, hey, wait a minute, what? I mean, he realizes there's more at play there. But I mean, there's really no need for either of them to investigate it because, I mean, they know it wasn't the Federation who did it. I mean, I'm surprised actually that, well, that's not the way this story was written. I mean, it could have been, why didn't they throw shade on Worf? Mm-hmm. He has no honor, and he would hate the Klingon, blah blah blah, or something like that.
Right.
But that would be a completely different episode.
It's true.
A whole other episode of Columbo.
Yeah. Right. When Riker says that it would be an honorable, if we're a Klingon, an honorable way to die, a suicide that takes an enemy with it. I thought that was very interesting. That this is something that at least in the from the 20th century and up until this recording, that is a thing that we see.
Yes.
From time to time in the political and social reality of the time in which we live. Unfortunate but true. But I thought that was an interesting line of his. Another thing that I thought of, I had this worry that it wasn't just Duras who was in collusion with the Romulans. I mean, seriously, it's not just one guy, I don't think. because conspiracies on that level surely aren't that small. Because if you've got the entirety of the Romulan Empire, or maybe, you know what, maybe I should take that back. Maybe it's one Romulan. If all it took was the brave Admiral Jarek to turn himself into the Federation, maybe it just takes one rogue Romulan to go find one rogue Klingon, though I don't know where they meet. You know, I don't know where they get together to hand off things like, hey,
it's Italics B.
Yeah, here's this bomb. Welcome to Talix B.
No,
here's
it's not a bomb. Don't just give you a bomb, though. You actually have to implant it, right? Somebody has to implant it in the Klingon.
Yeah.
I would think.
There's a whole thing. There's a lot of people that have to be involved in that, I would think.
Yeah, along those lines, it was interesting to me. I mean, as far as the number of people that would have to be involved in something, it was interesting to me that the High Council is willing to turn a blind eye to Worf's murdering Duras. Because they do, in the end, right? I mean, they're just like, I mean, the Klingon Council, I think Worf says something like, I acted within my rights as a Klingon. And Picard says, oh, yeah, and the Klingon Council would agree. They think this whole situation is closed. Man, there had to be a bunch of guys there who were just like, mopping their brow going, wow, we dodged. How many bullets did we dodge right then?
Right.
Because, I mean, maybe they're honoring Klingon tradition, or maybe they're sort of relieved that, as not Klingon as they've all become, Duras is really not Klingon. I mean, poisoning somebody, dishonoring Worf to save his own father's honor. Yeah. What was the other one? Oh, working with the Romulans, of course. I mean, maybe somebody there knew, but I mean, of course it's fine with them if Worf kills Duras. Please, we've been trying to figure out how to. When we brought you here for this commendation, we thought maybe.
But now.
So I couldn't tell if so is this them dodging that bullet, or was it just sort of a nod to the unfairness of Worf's situation, if not an outright admission? Like, okay, we have, if anybody else had done it, we'd probably have to say something, but you get a pass because boy did we screw you last time.
Or maybe they don't even care that much. Maybe they're just like, oh, politics, schmolitics. But when Duras killed that guy's mate, right of vengeance is on, because we understand that. Absolutely take that guy out. And, speaking of honor, because the Klingons do have some interesting and malleable ideas of honor. Yeah. Is it more honorable to leave with your parents due to career demands, or to raise the kid on your own? I'm just curious how this works out in Klingon culture.
Sorry. I love the touching moment. Are you my father? Yes, I am your father. Gotta go.
Yeah.
Remember what happened when they added a young child to Happy Days? If Worf goes anywhere near a shark, it is curtains for this show.
So I found myself in thinking about what happened with Kempak. I found myself thinking of the words of Thomas Jefferson.
Oh,
I know. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, said Thomas Jefferson.
That sounds violent.
It does. Yeah. And here's the thing. So Kempak dies, and then we come back, I guess it's in Act 2, and Picard says, Kempak, who ruled the Klingon High Council longer than anyone in history, is dead. And I couldn't help wondering if he was there too long. Did he sort of feed that status quo? I mean, there are a number of things that sort of go into this. He is seriously only the second fat Klingon that we've ever seen, I believe. Mm-hmm. He's gotten comfortable. Now, of course, that woman, Worf's nanny, says that even when he was younger, he was a little too portly for her liking. But I mean, he's obviously been fairly comfortable all throughout. I'm wondering if he and the Klingons just became too sedentary or too comfortable. I mean, because jokes about his corpulence aside, there's Worf's discommendation. There is his own murder. I mean, a lot of really horrible stuff has grown up in his shadow, and it all seems to be, in the name of maintaining the status quo. I mean, they were not about, when we talked about Sins of the Father.
Yeah.
They were not about making the Klingon Empire better. They were just about making sure it didn't get worse. And It feels like when that's all they were going for, I mean, it's sort of like I said to you earlier, aim high. I mean, if you're only aiming like to go straight, you're going to fall down a little bit, aim a little bit higher, and hopefully you'll hit straight. And it just kind of made me wonder if leaving him there too long, or if his being there too long, actually led to part of what happened with everything.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There don't seem to be term limits for an emperor.
No.
The Klingon Empire, and maybe there should be. Yeah,
I'm not a term limit. I mean, honestly, I'm not a term limits guy. I mean, that was the one problem that I had saying that. I mean, I'm not. I hate the idea of term limits. I'd rather you had an engaged electorate. You know,
Sure.
I mean, if somebody's serving you well for 20 years, put them in for 25. You know, but if they're not, take them out. You know, I don't mean take them out in the Klingon way. I mean, you know, vote them out, or vote them down, or impeach them, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
but yeah, I just kind of wondered if it was sort of like, well, we know him.
Yeah.
He's not going to screw things up. Have you seen Gowron? He's got crazy eyes. I'm not voting for him.
No, it makes absolute sense. But then with the whole Klingon Empire, with everything in Klingon tradition being built upon honor and conquest, well, maybe that's just the rut we find ourselves in now, where they have achieved at least some level of stability, and Worf's interest, obviously, in maintaining that stability by lying, you know, by taking this discommendation, even though he didn't need to, by not exposing the truth. Perhaps it's one of those things that everybody just accepted and said, okay, well, he has earned this position. Things have been okay since he's been here. Yeah, despite a false discommendation, despite these other things.
Yeah,
we'll keep him in. Yeah. The Klingon honor thing made me ask, well, there was this line that Data has that I thought was great in many ways. He said the use of the word excuses, which she says to KEhleyr, indicates some ulterior motive for war. You know. And I absolutely, there are many excuses, or just many reasons, maybe we should say. And I guess we kind of pick and choose which ones we want to use depending on how we're trying to frame the war. And maybe honor is a good enough excuse, at least for a Klingon. You know, maybe had any other Klingon been asked that, they would have said, yes, that is absolutely the reason for the war. But somebody like KEhleyr, who is half human and eschews a bit of Klingon tradition, maybe she's not okay with that.
Well, she's also an ambassador. I mean, it's her job to... I mean, one of her jobs would be to try to keep them out of a war, I would think. Yeah. Otherwise, you just don't have an ambassador.
Sure. Yeah, right.
Just have a guy with a gun instead of somebody who's like, no, let's talk about this.
Yeah. Well, I love that KEhleyr has the attitude that she has about everything. You know, she's a pragmatist with really no need for tradition. At least the kind of the abuses of tradition that go on around her. And in some ways, I think that makes her a great ambassador / representative, though I still wonder how she got the job in the first place. You know, with all the, you said it earlier, with all the shade that other Klingons, you know, kind of throw toward Worf, they're kind of all okay with KEhleyr. They're kind of all right with her. I mean, Duras is not, but, you know, he's only not when he finds out that she's going through his files. But she's got a thick skin, which is definitely a necessity. There are many great attributes to her character, and I get it why people are and were upset about killing her off after only 2 visits to the Enterprise. But fortunately, it raised the stakes of the drama, made everything that much more understandable in terms of motivation. But everything about this, you know, everything about Worf still trying to find himself vis-a-vis her and Alexander is just great when you introduce a character like her and like Alexander. They're both non-traditional Klingons. And I like that forces Worf to examine who he is. I can't remember which episode it was when I mentioned it the first time, but I think it might have been The Offspring. It might have been with Lal. Because the edict that had been sort of handed to the writer on that one, Renee Echeverria, was that the guest star, the story couldn't be about the guest star. It had to be about the main characters. So therefore the story couldn't be about Lal, and that's why you couldn't keep Lal around. But it had to be about Data, how Data is affected by her. And in this, you've got a Worf story, and you've got how Worf is affected by these people around him. And what I love is that the more and more we chip away at the Worf character by introducing us to his adoptive parents, who are wacky,
Yeah.
And by showing these other Klingons that are not like his idea of Klingons, I think is fantastic, because it forces him more and more and more to build an identity for himself and not just constantly fall back on this statement of honor. Well, whatever I do is honorable because I'm a Klingon, and Klingons are honorable.
I was amazed to see Alexander here because I did not remember, and we're just going to blow straight through the timeline. I didn't remember that Alexander came and went and then came back.
Yeah.
In fact, I was confused that it wasn't Brian Bonsall who was playing Alexander, because I didn't realize there had been two people that play him. Mm-hmm. For this one particular episode, I'm disappointed that, it's good that I'm glad that I know that they brought him back, because this could very easily be Kirk's brother George and Kirk's nephew, Little Kirk, whose name I don't remember, and neither does Kirk. So that's cool. I understand what you're saying. It's like, it introduces this new dimension. I feel like we only know that there's a new dimension introduced, though, because we do know that Alexander's coming back.
Yeah.
This is very much a standard TV thing to do. Like, I didn't know you had a sister, Tasha, kind of thing, right? Look, we needed a character, and so we made up this character, and now we need that character to not be here anymore, so it's going away.
Yeah.
I think if we did not know that Alexander was coming back, I would be actually kind of livid. But, I know he's coming back, so I'm okay with it. I wondered, actually, as we're trying to deal with some of the different messages, some of the different ideas presented here, I wondered if there wasn't something bad about keeping secrets. And there are a few different ways that you can actually look at that. First of all, Duras is about to take control of the Klingon Empire because Worf decided that would be the better thing to do than, to rock the Klingon Empire with the truth. And now you've got the same sort of thing happening with KEhleyr. If Worf had said, hey, don't tell anybody, but here's what happened. Because KEhleyr ends up, going and digging in, playing Columbo herself, and gets murdered as a result. Maybe if Worf hadn't been so secretive about the whole thing. Or Picard. If they had actually been, up front. I understand you can't spread the business all over the place because you don't want the Klingon Empire to fall down, but she is somebody that not only they could have trusted, they should have trusted. And because they didn't, she ends up dead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I think that's a valid point. She is an ambassador. It's not just like somebody on the Enterprise saying, "Hey, Picard, what happened when you were down there on the Klingon homeworld? You want to share with me on that?" No, this is the Klingon ambassador, and this is a matter of who will take over the position of leading that entire empire, and potentially colluding with Romulans, since we know what's going on with that. It seems like at a certain point that secret should have or could have been shared and done in a safe and pragmatic way.
At the same time, though, did Picard know that KEhleyr and Worf had mated?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying... that's
there's this kid. There is this kid on board.
Well, yeah, but she has a kid. That's all we know. There's more than one Klingon in her life. I'm not saying there's more than one Klingon romantically in her life, but, she shows up with a kid. I don't think, Picard's going to automatically assume, hey, he's got a forehead kind of like my security officer and every other Klingon in the Empire. I'm not saying that Worf would necessarily need to share that either, but the lack of transparency really leads to a lot of tragedy in this. And, of course, you're still going to have that lack of transparency. I'm not saying everybody needs to spread all of their business everywhere. But, it really is the secret to sort of... Because I think if Picard had any idea of the nature of their relationship, then he might have gone ahead and told KEhleyr, or at least indicated something. And then, might have saved her life. But as you said, we needed her to die. We needed her to die so that Worf could kill someone. Worf, who all through season 1 is drawing a phaser the second that door opens. Yeah. But now we have to kill somebody that he cares about before he's ready to kill anybody. No, he's grown.
But that scene with Alexander and Worf finding KEhleyr, I thought it was really powerful. And it seemed a bit gruesome for Star Trek. Mm-hmm. You know, we've seen people die from phasers before, and I would say maybe the most gruesome scene that we've witnessed up until now, other than an exploding head with a little critter crawling out of it, is maybe finding the scientists on the Regular One space station in Wrath of Khan. That was a bit bloody, but it was a well-written scene when Worf tells Alexander to look at the scene rather than do what we would probably rightfully do as humans, which is hide the kid from the horror. Little difference in Klingon parenting.
Although, well, yeah, it was also weird, though. Beverly, who we've said has been so great with kids, she realizes she can't do anything with KEhleyr and just sits there and sort of stares at KEhleyr.
Yeah, right.
And there's a 3 to 5 year old still standing on the side, looking at all the blood. Okay.
Yeah.
It was kind of surprising.
Probably time to call Deanna.
Maybe so. She's the one who wasn't in this episode, right?
And no Wesley either.
No, he was there. He was sitting.
Right.
He was sitting at the.
He was at Ops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some time ago, when we were talking about Sins of the Father, you made a pretty bold statement that if the Klingon Empire is so corrupt, then maybe it should just be burned to the ground. And I believe those were the words, burned to the ground.
Well, that was probably what I said, because I've said it a few times, is it's one of those burn this village to save it kind of things. Mm-hmm. But let's be clear, the Klingon Empire doesn't exist.
No, right. Well, exactly.
So in your fiction, yes, I'll say that. In the real world, then it gets a little bit more hairy. But if we're looking for analogy, then I want my analogy to be unequivocal.
Yeah, but I think that's a reasonable thing given the circumstance here. The more that I think about it, what is the point in constantly invoking the word honor when the thing that you're defending isn't honorable?
Right.
And I like that in this we see more of Klingon tradition and law, and the more it gets twisted by everyone to suit their own purposes. I kept thinking that's the kind of thing in the story that makes it relatable to the real world. And I'm not saying that as some sort of political statement or ideological statement. I just mean that people have a tendency to do that. Once you're married to an idea and that idea becomes part of your identity, then it's very easy to do the logical twists and turns and acrobatics to justify all kinds of terrible behavior and maybe even defend institutions that aren't worth defending anymore. So I thought this did a good job of continuing that idea.
Yeah, I'm curious why you don't want to make it political.
Well, no, because I think you can take this and you could really apply it to anybody.
Yeah.
And again, and this show, our show is not a political platform for, well, John believes this and Ken believes he should vote for so-and-so. I mean, I think this is an idea that you can apply to specific political situations, but it's also an idea that you can apply to any belief, any ideology that is married to personal identity. And that's the thing about the Klingons. The Klingons are all about their personal identity being wrapped up in honor and tradition. And we do these things because they are honorable and tradition. And then the flip side of that, if I do a thing, it is honorable because I am honorable.
Yeah.
Yeah. We mentioned the thing about Nixon. Well, if a president does it, then it must be legal because I'm the president.
Right.
So. Yeah, absolutely. You can apply all kinds of political situations to this, but I'm interested in the even bigger picture that this presents. I think it's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, well, and it definitely comes back to bite them in this episode. I mean, so it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Kempek has been there for a very long time. He is protecting the status quo at this point, and I get it. I mean, they don't want everything they know to fall apart. But, I mean, it ends up costing him huge in this episode. So they've got these secrets, and because this bad actor who had these secrets has been allowed to continue, then he makes it worse. he goes ahead and kills the thing that made it possible for him to live, and now he's going to take control. It kind of goes back to the thing I was talking about with Secrets with KEhleyr. It kind of goes back to the status quo that I was talking about with Kempek. I mean, it really is just. I mean, it is rotting from inside. It's interesting, actually. They say that Gowron is an outsider. Gowron is an outsider who has challenged the council. Okay, well, then now there's a chance, maybe, for the Klingon Empire, although he could be an outsider who's crazy as a bedbug. I mean, have you seen his eyes? I mean, seriously,
yeah,
this guy, this may not be the best thing. We don't know. And like you were talking about, too, I mean, sort of the modern versus the old form rights of succession thing. I mean, it's weird to me how quickly Duras and Gowron want to get everything over with. I mean, Duras more than Gowron. But, I mean, he just wants to say, like, come on, let's go. I got to get in power. I mean, they're seriously talking about an hour. He is going to be the leader of the Klingon Empire, but he doesn't want to wait 15 minutes, which is kind of stunning. It's weird to me that, you know, they are steeped in tradition, they are steeped in honor, but let's go ahead and get rid of the tradition part, and we'll just keep saying we're honorable, and people will believe it because we keep saying it.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is kind of a horrible thing. There was another. I like Picard's thing in this about the sons of the father and not necessarily being the sons of the son, as far as he's concerned. Worf says that Duras should not be allowed to lead the council because his father betrayed the Klingons to the Romulans. Thus, Duras is a traitor. And Picard's like, dude, no, that was his dad. That was not Duras. You know, except we know that Duras is a bad guy, but we've all decided that he's not. So he's not. It kind of ties into Picard's speech at the end as well, where we have 13 planets represented here, each with their own traditions, and I respect every one. But when you get here, that's outside. Start over. You leave that on the transporter pad, or you leave that in the airlock, right? Mm-hmm. What you are before you get here. I mean, the sins of your culture, if you want to say that, have no bearing here. Just like the glories of your culture have no bearing here. Who you are and what you do here, that's what has bearing here. Kind of remind me a little bit, honestly, of Legacy. Legacy? Yes, with Ishara.
Yeah.
I mean, she can't necessarily be trusted, but, I mean, he's going to start from zero with everybody, except for Ferengi.
Yeah, right.
He's going to start from, okay, don't know anything about you. I'm going to assume the best. Don't let me down. That seems to be his way with his crew and with just about everybody else he comes across. It was just show presented a few more ideas than I expected as we went to it again.
Well, maybe Data should have been around more for this episode because he could have learned another valuable lesson about not trusting people.
What, in this episode?
Yeah.
He already knew to not trust Duras, didn't he?
No, not really.
Oh, that's right, because they kept that quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't around for any of that.
It was actually an amazing episode in that almost nobody was in it a lot, but everybody was in it, except for Troy.
Oh, contractual obligations.
Suddenly, Worf has a family that suddenly goes away. What from the episode, Reunion, can we keep?
They got the band back together and not one song. That's crazy, man. That'd be like if you got
a lot of good Klingon songs. Yeah.
That's true. They're great at opera, but bands don't usually. Rock opera, maybe. Hey, Reunion, John. It's time to do that thing where we figure out whether the episode holds up, what the messages, morals, and meanings are, all that jazz. Does this episode hold up as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and even if we didn't cover all the ground that, maybe our listeners found in this as well, I feel like this is a rich episode. It's a good little bit of political intrigue that has a payoff if you like Klingon stories and you like Klingon intrigue in particular. It's really good to see the return of KEhleyr, the late KEhleyr, because I think the relationship stuff here works pretty well as well. Even if we may be left to question, well, why would Worf just give up his kid that quickly? It seems like, hey, make up for a little lost time here. Do something. Is that really the honorable thing to do? And if we did wrap it up a little too fast at the end, like, okay, well, that guy's dead. We got a new emperor. See ya. It's still, at least respecting the Klingon wishes and this even twisted idea of honor that the Klingons have. At least that solved the problem on their end. So they're good to go. So I'll say yes, it works. Yeah. I don't have any hesitation to say that this one works and holds up. How about you?
Do we know if they knew that Alexander was going to come back?
We do not have any indication that we knew that Alexander would come back.
All right. If I did not know that Alexander was coming back, I'd be pulling my hair out right now. And a lot of people know I shaved my head, so I'd be growing my hair out and then pulling it out.
Just to pull it out.
Yeah. It's I liked the episode more on the second viewing than I did on the first. The first time, second and third, the first time I was just sort of like, oh, okay, we're just doing the Klingon soap opera. And it was only watching it again and again, there was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. So I mean, there was actually more to it the second or third time. I mean, I thought it was a fine Klingon soap opera initially. So yeah, I'd say it holds up across the board, with the exception of the part. Again, if we were never going to see Alexander again, then I think I'd be livid.
Yeah,
there's like, oh, here's a kid. Oh, no more kid. I mean, because that's a big thing. I mean, it's interesting too that we did not talk about a whole lot about the whole parenthood thing in this, but that's because neither does Worf.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's practically not a thing that he has a kid now. But of course, once Alexander comes back, that will be a bigger thing. What about go ahead.
I would say all of this that indicates who Worf is and kind of this internal conflict about who Worf is. Whether we have the kid here for a total of 10 minutes screen time in this episode, or and we don't see him again for a year or however long. Mm-hmm. I think all of that is still about building this character of Worf, and the more layers that we add to him, the more interesting he becomes to me. I totally agree with your assessment that it works better a second or third time.
Yeah.
I think there are scenes in this that are very short, that have a lot of information, mm-hmm. and that pack a lot of plot into them. Just people sitting across a table and chatting. There's a lot of information in very short scenes, so you kind of need to see it a couple of times more to really get a feel for it, to really get your bearings on this episode. But yes.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, you say it's adding a layer to Worf. Mm-hmm. Again, it's only because I know Alexander's coming back that I'm willing to accept that. I mean, go back to when the Rishenkos came. Yeah. When the Rishenkos came in Family, and Riker's like, I don't understand why you don't want to see your family. Whoever was writing that had apparently no memory of how uncomfortable Riker's family made Riker. Right. So you say we're adding a layer, and I'm saying, okay, because I know this is going to be a layer that we're going to address again, then I'm okay with it. Otherwise, you're just piling stuff on in an episode. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that might have made this episode. I mean, having watched it all, I know that he's going to dress up like a cowboy and go play with his kid, and that's kind of awesome, But that doesn't happen today. Today, what happens is, oh, I have a child. My boy, I've lost my boy. Oh, and there he is.
Right.
What about messages?
Well, Worf to me is this embodiment of a couple of ideas, and at least with this one, that honor isn't the only thing. For as much as he goes through in this episode saying, well, I can't do this because it'll hurt these other people, and I can't get married because it will hurt my family line. For all this mental gymnastics he's doing, talking himself out of his obligations and using honor as the crutch to do that, the same way that Spock would use logic as the crutch to talk himself out of doing something. Mm-hmm. We finally get to a place at the end where, at least for a few seconds, he's able to throw that out the window and say that this honor and maybe obligation to honor, obligation to what other people expect, isn't the most important thing. What's most important is that he is who he is, and who he is his father to this boy, and who he is this guy who's been hurt at the death of his mate. Mm-hmm. So there are all these other things that then come to the surface finally for Worf. So I think that's a pretty exciting thing to see in a character like this. So is that a message? Well, maybe, certainly not on that dramatic a level for the rank and file of us just watching an episode of TV. Mm-hmm. but I do like the implied message there that obligation and this misplaced sense of honor and obligation isn't as important as being who you are and being true to what's in your heart. How about you, sir?
Well, sort of coming from the opposite side on that, I like the fact that who you are is more important than what you are. Who you are is more important than where you came from. I mean, it goes back again to Picard's Kirk speech at the end.
Right? Yeah.
13 planets represented here, and they leave all that stuff behind when they get here because we're all working towards something. Again, it goes back to the legacy thing a little bit. I mean, what was Ashara completely taken by? She was completely taken by the fact that all these people from all these different cultures are working together for one common cause, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so you're a Ferengi? Well, fine. That's good. And that means you've got your stuff. But when you come here, you're a Starfleet officer. You're a Klingon? Okay. But when you're here, you're a robot? But I mean, that was actually one of the things that I picked up on, that I really liked. And that's true on so many levels in this episode. I think it's true of, Worf and his whole discommendation thing. That's not really who you are. Mm-hmm. It's true of it plays through this episode, it seems. The honesty is the best policy thing. I mean, maybe it's not that's a little flip way to say that, but the idea of building your life on secrets, the idea of having to act in a different way than you say you're going to or than you should because you don't want the truth to come out. I mean, we're human, so we all do that. I think on some level, and maybe we don't all do that, but we all do that. So that was it was interesting to see how that can lead to folly, or how that can lead to disaster in a way. I don't know that I believe in complete and utter transparency, but the living on the absolute antithesis of what you say you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, defending your, quote, honor by being completely dishonorable in all your dealings, or defending the honor of somebody who is completely dishonorable in all of their dealings. It strikes me as kind of bad. And, of course, there may be a message here about safe holodeck play.
Well, yeah.
But that's sort of implied, maybe, or just, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps so.
Right. So does all that stuff hold up as far as, I mean, there's nothing, it's weird. We keep asking the does it hold up question, but it feels like the message is, maybe we should just say, by the way, that message stinks. When we come, because we keep asking and the answer tends to be yes at this point.
Sure.
But,
sure. At this point, yes, and safe holodeck play for sure.
Yeah.
Should go for everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We, of course, are talking about the weapons that he uses to fight on the holodeck.
Absolutely.
I don't know if anybody thought anything else, then that's just, you just need to remember that Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. You can find out more about all the stuff that Roddenberry does, from things to buy to saving the planet, at roddenberry.com. For more exciting Star Trek podcasts, be sure to check out Trek FM, that is trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, Future Imperfect.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by KEhleyr, free to download at KEhleyr.com. This episode featured the addition of 1 child and the subtraction of 5 lives, yet we still end with the same number of people on the Enterprise as when we began. So, it is basically a break-even show. End transmission.